flash forward a couple of years to 1885, 4 years before our story in Red Dead Redemption 2, Dutch came across a group of Illinois homesteaders preparing to hang a young boy for stealing from them. He saved the child named John Marston and brought him into the gang, teaching him to read and shoot just as he had done with Morgan. And Arthur and John became like brothers, and Dutch often used to read books to them by Evelyn Miller and Waldo Emerson, even though most of the concepts and stories that Dutch read to them went right over the young boys' heads. Now, Dutch educated Arthur and John on his anarchistic worldview, instilling them with distrust and hatred for the government. And he told them that America was designed to produce apathy in people. He would preach that revenge was a fool's game and they should never kill in cold blood. Now, over the years, many members of the gang came to believe that John was Dutch's favorite and the golden boy, much to the envy of others. Now, 2 years later, in 1887, the gang committed its first bank robbery. At 2 o'clock, Hosea, Dutch, and Arthur burst into the banking house of Lee and Hoyt. Arthur held a firearm to the teller and demanded he throw his hands up. Dutch then proclaimed, "My fine patriotic friends and I are going to release you of some of that gold and introduce a few." Held a firearm to the teller and demanded he throw his hands up. Dutch then
Hi. Hey guy, it's just not quite.
Dutch then
This is the new 888 Sport app, packed full of incredible features for all racing fans, like Watch and Bet, where you can live stream any race with no bet required to view. Get bet recommendations based on your previous winners, as well as what's trending. Back the form that matters to you with BetFinder, and get best odds guaranteed on all UK and Irish racing. Download our new app today. 888 Sport.
Yeah, perfect. For me during bank robberies.
Dutch then proclaimed, "My fine
He's going to mean
patriotic
everything to me.
friends and I are going to relieve you of some of that gold and introduce a few folks to the benefit of civilization." The gang made off with $5,000 in gold, and after the robbery, they lingered in town, going to hotels, shanties, and orphanages, handing out money. It was around this time, likely because of this bank robbery, that Dutch became a wanted man with a price on his head.
You see my horse? I don't touch my blood.
In 1889, the gang carried out roughly 37 different bank robberies in various locations around the country.
I'm sorry.
Now, at one point in the past, Dutch,
You asked where I was today.
the leader of the O'Driscoll boys, had an unconventional.
I need to know.
Dutch disliked how Cole treated his men as disposable, and Cole
And you-
Dutch
and-
for his philosophies about trying to make a better world.
You better not talk to him on Harris. Because I'll watch you angry.
Cole killed Dutch's lover Annabelle, an event which greatly angered and devastated them. These events led to a blood feud between the two gangs that would last.
Why is it saying
Now, during the
that
early years of the gang,
what looks like I'm viewing? But he's watching.
different. Dutch even scolded Arthur
Come in, lend him my boy if you are.
saying that it made them no better than the
Also.
people they were fighting against. As the years went on, Dutch gradually became disillusioned with society as the world around him grew more organized and civilized. With increasing government
Good,
centralization,
good. I believe you.
his idea of freedom. So the gang eventually stopped giving money to the poor and helping others, and instead focused exclusively on caring for themselves and securing their own survival. Dutch even allowed the gang to become involved in loan sharking via Volker Strauss, which often targeted the type of lower class people the gang previously used to fight for. Instead of just leaving, the gang also
I'm not
began
robbing
to give
house.
much to Hosea's dismay. Despite his objections, Hosea stuck around out of loyalty to Dutch, though his faith in their mission gradually declined and eventually it vanished over the years. Now, for the next 6 years, the gang traveled to the frontier, performing many other heists and crimes according to Dutch's values. In this time, the gang picked up around a dozen new members, usually people who wished to escape and live outside of the conventional society. It is unclear exactly when these gang members joined, but it includes the likes of members like Mac and Davey Callender,
So,
brothers, described as a vicious pair of bastards, and served as gunmen for the gang. Karen Jones, who was a con artist and trigger woman.
Tommy?
Mary Beth Gaskell was a young woman who was taken in by the gang as she was being chased by someone she had just pickpocketed. Tilly Jackson left her previous gang after she killed a cousin of Anthony Foreman,
White
the gang
House.
leader, and she lived on the street
You see,
until Dutch
you see what there?
took her in
That little camp.
just as she had done for Morgan and Marston. Simon Pearson was a former Navy chief who was rescued by
Yeah,
Dutch from
guess
a
what?
loan shark.
Up there.
He would become the
I think him. He's a stalker.
Severe alcoholism and a morphine addiction saved Dutch's life once, and as thanks, Dutch offered him a permanent place in the gang.
So should we?
Cole was a petty thief and drunk
Kill him.
who joined the gang. Due to his personality, he earned the reputation of a bit of a freeloader with the gang, but they let him stay due to his ability to entertain them and do whatever they wanted when asked. Sean McGuire was a young Irishman who attempted to rob and kill Dutch and Hosea.
Well,
and
first we're gonna rob him.
into the gang. Molly O'Shea was a woman who abandoned her rich family in search of adventure and romance. It's unclear how she joined the gang, but she later became Dutch's lover. The eccentric Josiah Trelawney was another con artist who formed an association with the gang. He would act as an informant for Dutch on both large and small-scale heist opportunities. However, due to his line of work, he was allowed to come and go from the gang as he pleased, never becoming directly involved with most of the other members besides Dutch.
Yeah, I'm probably getting
himself.
banned here.
And at one point in time, an unarmed member betrayed the gang, but was later caught and killed in the gang camp fort. Now, a couple of years later, in 1893, a drunk veteran named Bill Williamson attempted to rob Dutch, but Dutch simply laughed at him. This infuriated Bill at first, but Dutch cheered him up and took him into the gang, giving him a purpose and a reason to live. Bill lacked conventional intelligence, but he made up for it with his unfailing loyalty to Dutch and the gang. Now, a year later, in 1894, Uncle introduced the gang to a prostitute named
It's not
Abigail
Robin.
Roberts, who joined the gang and had sexual relations with several members of the gang. Abigail eventually started a relationship with John and soon became pregnant. John refused
Yes.
to accept responsibility for the child, insisting that it was not his. The baby, whose name was Jack, was subsequently raised by the gang, as he grew up to know many of the gang members like aunts and uncles, since the gang considered themselves all family. However, when Jack was about a year old, John abandoned his son and the gang. And this greatly
Even though I was saying good enough. Right, Tyrese, this is where I'm probably getting banned first from streaming.
While
Well,
Dutch
that's
and
not a
many
lot.
other members may have welcomed him back with open arms, Arthur never truly forgave John for his actions. And this would lead to a rift between the two brothers that would eventually steadily grow
What
over the next few
the
years.
fuck?
Now, 1 year later, in 1895,
Is
while
this?
stealing chickens, Dutch came across a young Mexican
No.
exile named
Oh,
Javier
sorry,
Escuela, who was also stealing chickens just to survive. Javier was starving and alone, so Dutch took him into the gang, feeding and clothing him. Javier, a former revolutionary, had a strong affinity with the gang's philosophy.
I'm still
and
going. I
began
will
to
delete the stream later on.
idolize Dutch.
Cause like,
Javier would become
I don't need
the
banned.
most loyal gunman in the gang. Now, 3 years later, by 1898, the gang found itself in Montana. Jose caught several large salmon, planning a feast for the whole camp, until Copper found and ate the fish. Now, sometime after this, Copper passed away. After a fire and
Okay.
some trouble in the north, the gang traveled south and east, taking a
Yeah.
slow and torturous
This is
trail
destroying the
down
evidence.
through the northern grizzlies to throw anyone off the tracks. They spent several months in the wilderness, and during this winter, they stuck mostly to the western foothills of the mountain. Food was plentiful, and for a time, the gang lived in peace. Dutch eventually got a lead on some land for the gang to buy for their savage utopia, but it did not match up to Dutch's criteria, for he grew suspicious that law enforcement was watching them, and the gang began wandering again. While traversing the grizzlies, the gang picked up several new recruits. The first of these new recruits were Lenny Summers and Charles Smith. At first, Hosea was unsure of Lenny, but the two grew mutually respect for each other and became good friends. Lenny was literate even before joining the gang, ended up offering some of the locals, leading to an altercation where Micah stepped in and saved his life. And this leads us to 1899. The gang arrived in the state of West Elizabeth and decided to camp outside of the town of Blackwater.
This is the Sweet Home Alabama. This is the Sweet Home Alabama, I think.
Convinced Dutch to rob a riverboat carrying money from the bank. Arthur and Hosea protested, believing the risks were too
This is Tyrese. This is the
Despite this, Dutch thought the heist would be worth the risk and went ahead with it. They scoped out several safe spots in the state of Boston where the gang used as a fallback after the robbery. The heist did not go as planned, with the Pinkertons arriving suspiciously quickly.
Hello, horsey.
Took a turn for the worse, and a gunfight ensued between the gang and Long. In the heat of the moment, Dutch cracked and killed an innocent girl named Heidi McCord in a very cruel way, according to
What's her reference right here? Head nurse, chef to warm up, chef to go up, then get chased.
For the time being, the latter two had much more severe injuries than John, and they died afterwards shortly. Sean and Mac ended up separating from the rest of the gang from each other. Mac apparently didn't make it very far. He was discovered by Detective Andrew Milton. On the verge of death from injuries sustained in a fight, Detective Milton attempted to question him about the gang, but Mac refused to rat out his gang until the very end.
Because the extra poison.
Who would go on to sarcastically describe it as a mercy killing. And we know that Sean escaped Blackwater, but was eventually captured by bounty hunters who planned to sell him over to the Pinkertons. Now, that last event right there that took place in 1899 is known as the Blackwater Massacre. And if you guys are interested in all the details surrounding that event, I highly recommend you check out a video I did a couple of months ago. I'll leave a link to it in the description that talks about all the details of that event that we never got to see. But anyways, that right there is the untold story of the Vanderlyn gang in Red Dead Redemption 2.
I don't watch this.
Caught up to all the events prior to Red Dead Redemption 2. To this day, I still believe that a DLC or some sort of story expansion
worth my strength.
events that happened before the story would be really cool, but it looks like Rockstar's focus is going to be more on multiplayer and whatever titles they have next. But anyways, that's all the information that I've got for you guys in this video today. Hopefully you did enjoy. If you did want to enjoy this video though, a like rating would of course be awesome. And be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you are new. If you want to stay up to date on all the latest
Also, sorry. I know I'm saying shit about it.
And be sure to ring that notification bell as well. Sometimes YouTube just doesn't work, and if you ring that bell, you'll always be guaranteed to be notified when new videos arrive. But of course, as always, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Take care. See you guys in the next video.
Might as well.
Giving away a completely free £5 bet on the first race on day 1 and 2, and any race on day 3 in Cheltenham. Don't feel like a punter, feel like a favourite. Funny power. Max 1 £5.
I mean, big thing you wasn't in Caroline say oh I throw up. That's sort. I mean.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Mr. Boss for the win here, and in today's Red Dead Redemption 2 video, we are going to be figuring out what happened to Arthur and the gang in Blackwater, and even more,
Saint Denis.
we're going to be uncovering this mystery that's mentioned a lot throughout the main story of the game. So
Me and my cuz.
that's something you hear a lot throughout Red Dead Redemption 2. You know, what happened in Blackwater was Blackwater ferry heist didn't end up working, and it actually spawned the entire
I was told that. What she just say? Well, I mean, like you don't really see your Caroline, don't you know? So it's kind of obvious. Oh, my heart.
Where they just tell you, hey, this is what happened. You sort of have to dig for it, and that's what we're going to be finding out in this video today. So the event that happened in Blackwater in 1899 was officially called the Blackwater Massacre, and it was a gunfight involving the Vanderlyn gang.
Right, we're gonna be. I want to do this morning.
Of the Pinkerton National Detective Agency. This happened in May 1899.
Yeah, council that it was quite boring this year.
The exception of Arthur, Hosea, and Josiah.
It was in.
They were basically going to hold up a steamboat where the Vanderlyn gang thought that the banks were actually transporting gold and bonds via boat in order for it to be a lot
Shut up, you
And
motherfucker.
essentially, it was going to be the biggest score of all time. Now, this went horribly wrong, as we'll talk about going forward. And according to accounts of the incident, as many as 37 men were killed, consisting of 22 outlaws and 15 members of the Blackwater Police Department. And although no exact number is known, it is believed that civilian casualties were minimal, and at least 3 members of the Vanderlyn gang died as a result of the fighting, with the 3rd member succumbing to his wounds after the gang had fled to the Grizzlies west. And that's sort of where it leaves us off at the start of Red Dead Redemption 2. We see the gang fleeing up in the mountains in the snow. They're freezing, they're starving, they're dying, and we just hear, you know, so many things went wrong in Blackwater, but we really don't know what happened here. So
And I actually lose from it to get out now.
happened in Blackwater is a ledger scrap that can actually be found at Micah's secret hideout after Chapter 3. And it says this: May 1899, outlaw gang wanted over heist Pinkerton Priest search. A gang of criminals believed to be under the outlaw Dutch gang
We're a good man inside me, Tyler Blakey. That's all, of course.
agents in Blackwater yesterday. The bank was moving the money out by boat after a string of stagecoach robberies in the area. The authorities believe that the men must have stashed the money in Blackwater before fleeing, and the town remains on high alert. This is one of the largest robberies in recent years, and that's where the article cuts off. So this reveals that the gang stole $150,000, which back in 1899, if we convert that to what that would be worth in 2018, 2019, that'd be around $4 million. That is a huge heist. So needless to say, that amount of money would pretty much have set the gang up for life. And we know that they stashed it in Blackwater as well. I'll talk about the potential locations of that going forward. So that newspaper scrap reveals a good bit, but we can actually get more information from Arthur's journal. This is something that people don't read into enough, but you can actually get a lot of details of what happened before the game. So let's read into that. The first thing we see is that Arthur has actually sketched out of roughly what the town of Blackwater looks like. So you can see all the streets, you can see like Town Hall. That is a drawing from Arthur. He also sort of draws what Town Hall will ultimately look like, and you can see that in a rough sketch right there. Now, this is what he says. He says, I bought this new journal after the last one got destroyed in that fire all those months ago, whenever it was. Haven't written or drawn down much in the past few months, but I was missing it more than I thought I would. And finally near a store, so here I am, I guess. After all that business up north in the fire, we spent a few months in the wilderness, traveling down from the Grizzlies. So that right there is Arthur first getting a journal. He goes on to say, stuck mostly in the western foothills of the mountains during the winter, food was easy to find, and
We're trying to raise money to build an expansion to the Quincy Harris Memorial Hall, a shelter for homeless veterans and their families. Can you help? A donation of $20 would put us well on our way.
We picked up a couple new folk in the Grizzlies, and this next page is kind of interesting.
$20 ain't no chicken's favorite. Sure, I can help you.
You guys don't know.
Very kind.
Like before
What is your name, sir?
starts.
Arthur Morgan.
Your
Never
donation
saw
will be
what she actually
acknowledged
looks like, but
on a founder's
according
plaque
to a
when the
sketch,
building is completed.
that's her
You have a
appearance.
great day, miss.
Arthur
What do you
goes on
think
to
you're
say,
doing?
Jenny, a sweet young girl we
getting
met
the police right
abandoned
now.
on the roadside, and Micah, an outlaw Dutchman, in a bar someplace. Dutch seems very taken with Micah, who's pretty hot-headed, argumentative, and full of himself. Hosea and I are less sure. Guess we shall see. Eventually, we came out of the wilderness and are holed up outside of Blackwater, although sometimes I stay in town, hunting for opportunities. Following that, we can once again see
No, so, I mean, I saw what I had.
sketch of the Blackwater Town Hall, and he goes on to say, I might be onto something. We got plenty of money, and the trail we took was torturous and slow. Nobody could have followed us south and east or figured out where we was heading. We was thinking about California, but then Dutch and Hosea brought us down to Blackwater. So you can kind of see how the story is laid out so far, is that Arthur and the gang escaped a fire up north. They were talking about what move to do next, thought about California, but then eventually headed down to Blackwater. And that's when we move on to the next drawing that you can see here. Arthur is essentially just sketching out the town of Blackwater, which consists of a bank, main streets, and such. And then he goes on to say this. Blackwater has apparently grown a whole lot since any of them was last here. I was told to expect little more than a trading post, but the place is growing fast and it's almost a small city. The town seems to be riddled with corruption, but there's certainly plenty of money here. It's good to be sleeping in a bed from time to time and living a more civilized life after so long under canvas, but I do not particularly like being this near to a town. This sort of reinforces Arthur's hatred of civilization, and apparently that consists of Blackwater as well. He goes on to say we are living here camping outside town, mostly hidden in plain sight, I guess.
Yeah.
Life seems pretty easy. Abigail and Marston keep arguing. I wonder why exactly
Terrace.
He cannot
I'm
seem
not
to
eating
decide
what we're
if
looking at
bother
right now.
that boy
Either
is or
fish
not. The arguing is
or
exhausting. I heard talk of a man sounded like Trelawney, but we haven't seen him for many months. So a couple things here. At this point of time, John has returned to the gang for the Blackwater incident, and Trelawney is still gone, and we haven't seen him for months. That's kind of interesting. After that, Arthur says Jose and I are on something pretty big. Might be a lot of cash coming in to do with a real estate scam Hosea thinks we might have discovered. I am not sure yet. The perfect crime, we think. One where we rob folks. We're being
let's do it.
It's fun
This
working
one.
with Hosea again. The man is an artist of nonsense. Even if nothing comes of it, we are having an amusing enough time. So this is the job that
Might hunt the boy,
Hosea
come
and
here.
Arthur
I might hunt
have
the
throughout the game.
that fish is that if he comes right over now.
Scam. Okay, that seems a lot safer than trying to heist one of the ferries in Blackwater. Interesting stuff right there. Now on the next page, we can actually see Arthur sketching out the ferry that I think they were ultimately robbing. So that gives you a better idea of the size and scale of the vessel they were trying to
this is more
heist.
fish here.
And he goes on to say, it's good to be running scams again. Hosea is a born huckster. He is getting anxious, worried that by lingering in town, we are going to bring undue attention on ourselves. But Dutch thinks he is also onto something big. His words, not mine. Bank money being brought in by boat. Apparently, so for now, we are working on both things and seeing what happens. Plan is to flee west into the desert country someplace if we can. So they were never supposed to head east. They were supposed to head west. But obviously, as you know, things don't go according to plan. Arthur says after that, Micah and Dutch are planning to rob the ferry in town. They think it's laden with riches, cash coming in for the banks, coming in by boat. For once, I am not getting involved in the job. Hosea and I are too taken up with our business, which I believe could go very well, and Dutch seems confident that the group assembled all will be okay. Famous last words right there. And he follows up by saying, plan is for them to carry out the job, then flee into the wilderness out to the west. The next day, Jose and I carry out our scam and join them. Dutch seems happy and excited. He's talking again about California, but he's also talking about a lot of other places. And we actually get some more details of this on the very first newspaper article that you can read in the game. It says Blackwater lockdown. Bank boat heist, largest
I'm gonna get a lot of mean fish.
Dutch's boys accused, bounties placed. Furnishes a sensation among residents. Money believed stashed by outlaws. After a bloody shootout that resulted in the seizure of a large quantity of banknotes being shipped by boat, Pinkerton agency officials have restricted access to the town of Blackwater while a massive manhunt is underway. Officials issued bounties on the heads of Dutch Vanderlyn and his gang, commonly known as Dutch's boys. Banks looked into shipping assets by boat as a more reliable means of transportation, impervious to thieves. The deadly attack resulted
what a jump, boy.
$150,000
You're a good boy, right?
robbery in the region in recent years. Authorities believe that the men may have stashed the money in Blackwater before fleeing. Reports indicate that many are searching high and low for the stash.
If I get that one on, I'm watching the laugh.
Started. Residents of Blackwater view the lockdown with contempt. Businesses who depend on shipments of dry goods, sundries, and catalog sales complain that Pinkertons have caused an unnecessary burden to life and welfare. So again, this newspaper article right here confirms what we know so far is that $150,000 has been stolen. But it raises the question, where did the gang stash it? There are many times throughout the game where they reference the fact that the money is still in Blackwater and that all they need to do is go back and get it. Now, one important fact you need to note here is that Dutch's mother, Greta Vanderlyn, is actually buried in Blackwater, to the surprise of both Arthur and Hosea that didn't know that, because Dutch says the last time she was seen talking about the Blackwater Massacre is that Dutch actually murdered a young girl, and her name is apparently Heidi McCourt, and she was a young mother and one of the first victims of the Blackwater Massacre, who was shot in the head by Dutch Van der Linde during the ferry robbery.
So, you were there out here. What really happened on that boat?
Yeah, the money is
I got something up.
Oh,
suddenly they were everywhere.
Bounty hunters?
No, Pinkerton. It was crazy. Raining bullets. Dutch killed a girl in a bad way. But it was a bad situation.
That ain't like you.
And she's actually been described by the strange man as being a pretty girl until her eye was hanging out by a piece of tendon and her brain was plastered over the wall. So many times throughout the game, Dutch says that it had to be done. It was the only way for them to survive. So what I'm assuming here is Heidi was maybe getting in the way of them performing the robbery, or she was going to maybe tell that the gang was there, and the Dutch had no choice but to kill her.
We were gonna overcome these challenges. That Blackwater? You're burning nothing nice. I know that. We have to push on. Even though we walked through hell.
oh my god, it's so annoying. I hate fishing this game.
We walk together. Remember that? Easy does it. All of you. Remember that.
That's just a theory, but it does ultimately make sense. And throughout the game, you can hear all of the gang members talking about the Blackwater Massacre in their own way. If you actually go back to camp at night when there's campfire stories going on, you can hear the game consistently referencing the Blackwater Massacre, sort of adding to the mystery and the lore of this entire event that takes place.
What's going on about that? At least, you know it now. I'm still trying to forget. Got my wings.
Oh, I'm so close.
Nearly got eaten by a pack of wolves. Maybe I should learn my lesson. Just
My finger's in your break.
I love Dutch. You don't know that.
Come on. Finally. Sure, there's the big fish take quite a lot to, you know. I don't want it. Train. Can't, it's too risky. I didn't say. Wait. Harris, are you seeing that? Are you seeing that? That little flash? No. No. Oh, no,
Other than those campfire stories and the brief references of the Blackwater incident that happens throughout the game, never get to see any flashbacks, we never get to see any footage of what happened. So it almost begs the question, is this going to be something that Rockstar builds upon in the future? In my opinion, this is one of the perfect opportunities for a story mode expansion, where we actually see the gang in Blackwater. We actually get to see their story and their life before the game starts, before they're heading up into the mountains. In my opinion, that would be really cool, and it would answer a lot of questions that have been present from even the first Red Dead Redemption game. But hopefully what I've told you guys in this video today has given you better background on what happened. And it sort of sets up the scene for the entire game, because without this knowledge, you almost wonder why the gang is on the run. They just keep running and running and running, and they keep referencing Blackwater and money, but you might not understand why. Hopefully this gives you better information on what happened, and I also hope Rockstar dives into this one day and gives us an amazing sort of prequel to Red Dead Redemption 2 and tells the story of what happened before the game actually begins. But anyways, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments down below. Let me know what you think about this mystery, the story of the Blackwater Massacre, and more in the comments down below. If you did go on to enjoy this video though, a like rating would of course be awesome. And subscribe to my YouTube channel if you are new. If you like daily Red Dead Redemption 2 videos like this. With all the way guys, like I said, thanks so much for watching. Take care. I'll see you guys in the next video.
Paddy Power giving away a completely free £5 bet on the first race on day 1 and 2 and any race on day 3 in Cheltenham. Don't feel like a punter, feel like a favourite. Paddy Power. Max one £5 free bet for customer
Right, I'm gonna go Tyrus. That's the last of what.